Having performed various upgrades to our Traxxas Slash 4x4 already, the next few upgrades centre around the steering system, and where better to start than with replacing the stock plastic bell cranks with the STRC Aluminum set. As much as the Slash 4x4 is a fantastic vehicle, I find the stock steering setup a little sloppy, so we'll be concentrating on the steering for the next few upgrades, starting with the bell cranks and working our way back to the servo itself. So when it comes to the bell cranks, I chose the highly respected STRC set. This does not come pre-assembled, and so parts of the stock bell crank will need to be recycled, but taking a close look at the quality, it's seriously impressive, machined to precision. Let's go ahead and get this thing bolted in. As always, we remove the body, and for this upgrade we'll be concentrating on the front assembly. We've previously upgraded to the RPM front bulkhead, but if you have the stock Traxxas bulkhead, you'll need to remove these two screws above the audio box and the two screws on either side of the chassis, before rotating your servo and removing the single screw holding the linkage arm to the bell cranks, allowing you to pull the front assembly away from the body. Next you'll need to remove two screws up top and 3 on the bottom in order to remove the front bumper, giving us access to the screw holding this metal plate in place. Next, remove the 2 screws under the skid plate, along with the 2 metal pins holding the A-arms in place, and finally we have clear access to the bell cranks. If, like me, you have the RPM bulkhead installed, the process is a little easier, as with the stock front assembly we remove the 2 top screws and the 2 screws on either side of the chassis, allowing us to pull the front assembly away, being careful since the bell cranks are still attached to the servo linkage arm, released by removing a single screw. Now that we have the front assembly, RPM bulkhead users will notice the servo link arm still attached. We'll remove this shortly. For now, irrespective of stock or RPM bulkhead, we can release the 2 toe links attaching the wheels to the bell cranks, both being held in place with a single screw each under the assembly. Again, with the RPM bulkhead, we can now gain full access to the bell cranks by releasing the 3 screws down below, allowing the skid plate to completely detach from the front assembly, so no need to remove the A-arms or the differential cover as with the stock setup. Nevertheless, the first step to replacing these is to remove them from the skid plate by removing the 2 screws, taking care to keep the tiny spaces, and carefully pull the bell cranks up and away. You'll probably find the 2 lower bearings stay stuck in place, although there's no need to remove them as they'll be reused anyway. At this point, those with the RPM bulkhead can go ahead and remove the servo linkage arm completely, leaving us with the stock bell crank itself. Before we assemble our new bell cranks, we'll need to recycle some parts from the stock unit, namely the 2 bearings up top, the spring retainer providing access to the spring we also need to reuse, and finally the 2 shoulder screws holding the tie bar in place. So with the spring, 2 bearings and shoulder screws from the old unit, we can assemble our new STRC bell crank. Taking this part right here, we insert this circular piece as shown, taking care to line up the top notch. Now we insert the shoulder arm, followed by the large spring removed from the stock plastic unit, and then this circular piece where you'll notice a threaded lip which needs to go in towards the spring, and tighten down so it's slightly under the inner lip and won't rub up against anything. Finally, we need to attach the center tie bar to both sides of the bell crank using the 2 shoulder screws removed from the previous unit. As always, ensure thread lock is used when screwing into metal. Now that the STRC bell crank has been assembled, if you have the RPM bulkhead, it's time to reattach the servo linkage arm, inserting the screw from the bottom, before pushing the bell cranks down onto the skid plate, which still has the bottom bearings in place, followed by inserting the 2 top bearings previously removed, and the washers and screws to keep it all in place. Our new bell crank is now installed and functioning smoothly. At this point, it's a good idea to place some thread locker into the remaining threads on the bell crank, after which we can attach the 2 front turnbuckles with screws going from bottom up. Finally, we reverse the process originally taken to remove the front assembly, whether it's stock or RPM. So as I have the RPM here, I'll reattach the servo linkage arm, reseat the skid plate back into place, making sure to line up the bell cranks with the 2 notches in the chassis, after which we can secure into place with the 2 screws on either side of the chassis. Next we reattach the front assembly, taking care to connect the centre drive shaft and secure into place with the 2 screws up top, and the 3 screws down below. And that's it, job done. It's a good idea to fire up the vehicle and check the steering is all okay at this point, and as we can see here, all is looking good. Now that we have the solid bell crank setup, we need to think about replacing the stock servo, which has plastic gears, to something a little beefier with steel gears, and that's exactly what we'll be doing in the next upgrade.